Now, to tell you more about the story itself, CODA is a freeborn clone. This book is based on the premise that our universe is not the only one that exists. I have created a megaverse which contains a multiverse. You know, scientists tell us that our universe started with the Big Bang Theory. But why only one Big Bang? I mean, couldn't there be more than one? So let's assume there was 99 Big Bangs. This book works on the premise of 99 universes and 12 realms of life. It also works on the premise that humans didn't come from Earth, that humans came from somewhere else, and that they did basically the same thing. They came from a planet called Meba, and they basically did the same thing as we are doing here. Our population growth is exceeding the resources of Earth, and eventually they had to find somewhere else to survive. They had to build these generation ships. They have to go off into the multiverse and find other places to live. But of course they also thought that it was only a universe, and then as they went along they discovered these vortexes that took them through into other universes, and thus the multiverse was finally discovered, and these realms started to form as humans expanded. Now the next little piece I'd like to read is where CODA is discovered by Captain John Masters and his crew. They came from Meba, and well, I'll just go on and read that if I can find it. If I can find it. Anyway. The Orthaxal Cloud, Anusa Quadrant, the Nullux rover. Orthaxal Cloud is what the name of this big black cloud. The Anusa Quadrant is part of the Meban realm, and the Nullux rover is the name of the captain's ship. It's a warship, the captain said, or what's left of it. The creeping fatigue of constant space flight over the past 6 months lifted in that instant of first sight. The atmosphere on the bridge was tense with anticipation. Everyone was focused on the screen. It has Adavakian letters on it, but looks nothing like an Adavakian warship, the captain continued. Too small. It also looks like it was fast and elegant, more like a fighter than a warship. What do you make of it, Lieutenant? Shay looked up at the screen. Most likely a mercenary ship, sir. Are there any survivors on board? Our scanners have picked up hydrogen, oxygen, methane, carbon, and water. Lots of it, Captain. Shay was incredulous at the quantity of it. 52% of the ship's internal volume is filled with water, now turned to ice. All systems are offline, and there are no signs of life. He looked up at the screen. It seems as if we have a dead ship that has come through the Orthaxal Cloud. Aha! The captain nodded in agreement. Cloud status? We have a 15-hour window to tow the wreckage out of there before the cloud closes in on it again. Then we have no time to lose. We are close enough. Fire the grapples, Lieutenant. Shay hit the release, and the magnetic grapples shot out with their fine metal alloy cables. They spread out like ever-lengthening tentacles reaching out for its prey. They created small dust clouds as they hit the hull and took hold. Take us out, Lieutenant, nice and slow. Shay released some pressure on the forward thrusters, and the Nullux rover slowly started moving backwards. Once they were out of harm's way, he released the grapples and let the wreckage float past them. He maneuvered the Nullux rover along the side of the wreckage and lined up with its docking station. Once docked, he set a course that took them a safe distance away from the cloud. That's far enough, the captain said. Put us in a slow holding pattern. I think it's time to take a look at what we have. Call the doctor and 3 of the crew to go with us. He stood up from his seat and headed for the docking hatch. Shay put them into a holding pattern on autopilot. He then called Monica and the 3 crewmen on the comlink. He handed the bridge over to Chief Engineer David Wall and went to the docking hatch. At the boarding party were changing into their spacesuits when Shay said to Monica, "There's a lot of ice on board. 52% of the ship's volume is filled with it." He noticed the darkness come over her, but her expression remained determined. He knew there was no going back for her. "I don't know how much of it has melted, but watch yourself." "Thanks for the warning, Shay, but I can take care of myself. Now help me with these clips, please." Shay smiled and Monica wrinkled her nose at him as they went through the ritual of tying down the clips on each other's backpacks. They helped each other with their helmets, checked their weapons, and joined the rest of the crew. The captain opened the door that led out onto the docking platform. There was no gravity in this area, so they activated their magnetic boots and walked up to the alien craft. The door was frozen shut and could not be opened, so the captain ordered one of the crew to use his heat laser on the door mechanism. When it had cooled down, the crewman pulled the 2 levers that unbolted the door. There was a release of pressurized vapor as the door pushed inwards and slid to the left. What greeted them was a large floating fish, unlike any they had ever seen before. Its oversized head with its dead eyes and long glistening teeth had an electrifying effect on the boarding party. In shock, they had all pointed their weapons at it. As if it had finally been set free, the frozen fish slowly floated out and past them. They all stared at it in disbelief. Monica broke the spell by taking hold of the fish's tail and put it in a large bag for further analysis. "Come on, you lot," the captain said. "Look sharp now," and walked in. No matter what was said about him, he had no fear. They all followed him into what seemed like an ice cave. Their flashlights picked up more dead fish and icicles floated everywhere. As they walked, the air that had been still for 800 years was disturbed and seemed to come to life. Icicles bounced off them and frozen fish started to swirl with the air current. "Have you ever seen anything like this?" Monica asked, to no one in particular. "No," said Shay. "The fish are an unfamiliar species too. Look at the colors on that one. Even dead, it looks almost luminous." They walked into the central chamber and took in their surroundings. Ice had formed on all the surfaces. The edges were softened and rounded. For a spacecraft, it was highly unusual to find handcrafted wood-paneled walls and wood banisters along the metal gangways. The central gangway that led from the bridge at the front to the glass elevator towards the rear of the ship spanned the large open space over the surface of the ice, which filled the bottom half of the ship. Beyond that was a storeroom that was almost entirely filled with empty laser generator packs and plasma torpedo cases. This ship had clearly not been on a mission of peace. The captain led the way across the central gangway towards the bridge door. It was a double door, also made of wood panels. Its handles were made of a dark hand-beaten alloy, the same as the mesh floor. The captain twisted the handles and pushed the doors open. Shay and Monica stepped into the room behind the captain and stood awestruck for a moment. Dominating the circular room was a huge glass ball water tank, now frozen ice. The walls were completely lined with wood-paneled cabinets. In front of the tank was a cockpit seat devoid of any instruments. Further ahead were 2 large red leather wingback chairs that faced the floor to ceiling observation port window. It was a wide window that gave a 180-degree view. On the floor was a hand-woven carpet that formed a ring around the tank and cockpit seat. The designs on it were complex and aquatic, with the main colors being blue, green, burgundy, reds, and gold. Floating in the room were articles of clothing and a 3-foot-long black metal flute. "Fan out," the captain ordered, as the crew moved forward, training their flashlights in all directions. Monica was about to move forward when one of the flashlight beams trailed across the tank from the opposite end of the room. She reacted with a sharp intake of breath when she saw the dark silhouette in the center of the tank. "Look," she pointed at it. They all heard and trained their flashlights at the tank. No one could see anything out of the ordinary, as they were all behind their flashlights. Monica slowly pushed Shay's flashlight down to reveal the silhouette against the black light. The captain came over and stood next to Shay. They stared in fascination. "Well now, I assume that would be our pilot," the captain said. "Lieutenant, find an auxiliary power input and hook some power up to this craft. Get Chief Wall to recycle the air with heated oxygen so that we can take off our helmets and start work." He walked over to the crew to give further instructions, and Shay got on the comlink to Chief Wall.